Now, the head of the EPA is going to East Palestine today and is set to hold a news conference. When that train derailed, emergency crews released and burned off loads of chemicals to prevent a catastrophic explosion. But it has created this
Remember that this, for those who are unaware, this train was basically carrying bomb material. So it was basically carrying chemicals that would explode and create an environmental hazard, which it already is. But if it exploded, it would be another level.
Gigantic plume of smoke over the town. There have been reports of pets getting sick and fish turning up dead in local creeks.
So I looked this up, right? There have been over 3,000 fish that have died, 12 different species. So this is not just like, oh, we found a fish. No, like thousands of fish. That means the water supply. I'll let the clip run because I'm just going to get myself worked up here.
Creeks. The train company, Norfolk Southern, was a no-show at last night's meeting. In a statement, this is what they said. We know that many are rightfully angry and frustrated right now. We have become increasingly concerned about the growing physical threat to our employees. Our people will remain in East Palestine, respond to the situation, and meet with residents. We are not going anywhere. Well, people who live in the area are concerned not only about their health right now, but years from now, and they should be. Our Bill Weir is here to explain what these spilled chemicals do.
So before he does that, I want to take a second to, one, infight a little bit. We can talk about the Democratic failure here. I will then talk about the Republican failure. The Democratic failure is twofold. One, well, you know what? I actually think I should start with the Republican failure. And that is a long-lasting hatred for any sort of regulation, both environmental and safety related. And under Trump's administration, as I believe he's going to be talking about in this clip, under Trump's administration, the regulation regarding the brakes on the trains have been altered. Now, the regulation also around these trains, these freight trains carrying chemicals driving through and around residential areas also was altered. Now, the first failure, as I pivot to the Democrats, was from Pete Buttigieg not reinstating this. So Pete Buttigieg, I'm not the biggest fan of, if you're not aware, but I think people look to blame him for things that he is not in charge of. But this is something that he could have helped prevent, maybe not prevent entirely, but he could have worked to prevent regulations regarding the size of trains. And this then levies into the Biden failure, which it's not direct. But remember a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago at this point, the potential for the train union strike. Remember when the workers for the union wanted to have better sick pay, wanted to have more people for safety? Remember when I talked about having multiple people on a train to ensure that it's safe? I said that on this exact show. Companies like this one, like the monopolies back in the day, are only driven by shareholder value and maximizing that. Stakeholders are devalued. I'll put it this way before I let this clip continue. The externalities or the expenses, the losses, the damage caused by environmental catastrophe, caused by, potential loss of life, those things are socialized. The profit the money, that is privatized.
Bill, good morning to you. They really want to know what is going on, who is responsible, and what effects it's going to have on their lives and their health. What can you tell us?
Well, the immediate disruption is so painful to see. These people are running out of money as they stay in Airbnbs. There's so much fear and uncertainty.
That's the other thing is the country has not forced, and I should say the Biden administration, you can throw the Congress in there too, has not forced this company to provide, and I'll throw the Republican governor of Ohio, the Republican senators from Ohio, they have not called for this company to provide for the people of Palestine. They are just leaving them to dry. And Biden can't come and swoop in with FEMA, because until the Ohio governor declares a state of emergency and asks for help from FEMA. So the Republican said, oh, it's fine. It looks fine. I wouldn't drink the water, but I'd still go home. The blatant disregard for people's livelihoods, for their homes, for their safety, for the environmental toxicity in their water. The water supply in Flint was one thing. Now this is going to be next level. Next level.
As you see there. But if you think they're angry now, they will only be more angry when they have the time and the wherewithal to look into the company behind this crash. Norfolk Southern is a $55 billion rail company, almost $13 billion in operating revenues last year, and they have a really checkered past. This is in 2005. 14 cars derailed in Graniteville, North Carolina there. 9 people died. 851 people were treated, but in the end, they settled for an EPA lawsuit settlement of $4 million in fines, mainly because they violated Clean Water Act laws and killed a bunch of fish. They probably settled with a lot of companies, but they've been doing sort of cost-benefit analysis in the railroad industry for a long time. And the thing that is most fascinating to me are the brakes on the train. You got to understand, in recent years, Norfolk Southern, in particular, adopted a new kind of business model, which meant a lot longer trains, 2 miles long, a lot fewer people.
If you just heard what he said, the trains are miles long. They have 2 people on them, conductor and the engineer. One person in the front, one person in the back.
Off tens of thousands in the industry. That train was almost 2 miles long, and we think had conventional air brakes, which brakes from the front to the back. So it can take 2 minutes before the back cars know to stop, and they become a slinky from hell and slamming into the cars that have stopped in front. For years now, since the early 2000s, there have been electronically controlled pneumatic brakes. When Norfolk Southern first tried these, because they brake every car all at once, they raved about it. They actually appealed to the transportation official and says, you shouldn't have to inspect trains with ECP brakes. They are so effective. But then when President Obama tried to make them mandatory after a bunch of derailments in 2014. Said, let's just put them on the cars that have explosive carcinogens, for example. The industry, the railroads, the chemical companies, the lobbies fought it hard. They gutted it. The final version was that longer, high-hazard flammable trains would need brakes by 2023, ironically. But in 2018, the Trump administration, Elaine Chao was the transportation secretary, rolled it back entirely. This will be the sort of topic, I'm sure, of the class action lawsuits that are now being filed. The response from Norfolk Southern so far, $1 million charitable fund, $1.2 million financial aid to families.
A company that makes $12 billion in revenue. So, for perspective, just do the math with me real quick. 12 billion is 12,000 million. So you're talking about 1 million, which is not even a drop in the bucket for what these costs are going to be to charitable funds. 1.2 million for financial aids to families. What about the potential cancer risks? What about the destruction of the environment, their water systems? That alone, the water system is more than $1 million. This is ridiculous. And again, this is where it's like Democrats get like this fear of pushing for potential regulations. Obama had it right the first time. Pushing for proper regulations, not overbearing, not unnecessary, not crazy, but regulations that are useful, tactful, are necessary to prevent stuff like this from happening. And then Republicans will feign outrage and say, actually, I think this might be a sabotage. We should, and as it's pointed out in the chat, this should have bipartisan rage. You should be angry at this stuff. You should care that people are getting removed from their homes. They're being told that it's safe to. How is it safe? I'm asking you right now. How is it safe for somebody to go back into their home where the water is poison? If fish that live in literal sewage are dying, I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but fish are not exactly clean, but they're in mass dying. There is no way that people should be getting pushed back into their houses and say, yeah, it's fine. It's because the company does not want to be held to account and the government is able to, because I was going to say they're unable to, but they're unwilling to hold this company to account. They gave them a break and they didn't give the raises that were necessary, the paid sick time that was requested by the unions. No, they forced a contract down their throats. And now we see the unsafe working conditions